Calamity is considered Terraria's greatest mod, adding new items, enemies, and bosses. My objective is to use hundreds of new weapons, explore new biomes, and defeat all 27 new bosses, all to deliver the full Calamity experience. I loaded up my world and chose to play on Revengeance mode, a custom difficulty added by Calamity. While chopping down trees, a strange man fell out of them. Jack? It was just a lumberjack NPC who sold me a ton of wood, meaning I don't have to do any manual labor myself. I did some exploring and found these wolfram robots added by the mod. Then at the desert, I got attacked by like 3 different enemies, and as you can see, exploring wasn't going well, so I opted with settling down instead. And I know most Terraria runs use insta houses, but I actually enjoy building in Terraria, so I'll be making it myself. My home design is gonna be a secret for now, but you could probably guess what it's going to be later on. I moved my NPCs into the house and started exploring again. This old rundown house in the snow biome contained a toolbox, which was gonna be really useful for building. I took down a ton of wolfram robots and made a wolfram screwdriver, which summoned a screwdriver projectile that did a ton of damage. The screwdriver let me beat a wave of zombies in the nighttime, and it was really fun to use. I went mining to collect heart crystals to increase my health, and then this robot spawned in, telling me to make a magic storage system, which could keep all of my loot in one place so I wouldn't need a chest. Having an entire cloud storage of space would be amazing, but I still needed gems to make. I went underground, but I couldn't find any. I went back home to continue working on the house for more NPCs, and while this was happening, slime started to rain from the sky, and after defeating all of them, the king slime spawned in, but I was no match for it. Losing to the king slime was a reminder I needed to get stronger, so I got accessories, gold armor, and made the king slime spawner. Let's give the slime a try. You're kidding me. The Eye of Cthulhu would spawn in on the same night I'm fighting King Slime. Yeah, I got a bit unlucky that the eye spawned in along with the King Slime. I decided to move on and fight the slime by itself. King Slime had this ruby on his crown that came out and shot laser beams, which is a great addition to the fight and is one of the many reasons why I love the Calamity mod. And after a pretty cool fight, I beat the King Slime. Go! The next boss requirements were located in the underground desert, and while I was there I found a shrine containing a luxurious gift which added unique projectiles to certain weapons. I also found the NPC I wasn't expecting to find. What is the goal for doing down here? I finished exploring and it was time to fight the Scourge of the Desert. After I got it down to a certain HP, it split into 2 segments. I was not gonna lie, I was not ready for all that. After losing so much, I thought it was time to change my approach. I made fossil armor to do more damage with my bow, and I gave the Desert Scourge another shot. I took it down and I got a strong rogue weapon that looked really cool and shot through walls. After beating the Desert Scourge, Calamity's progression then leads you to an area under the desert, which is my favorite biome added by the Calamity mod. The Sunken Sea, an aquatic biome with a variety of sea creatures and glowing sea sharks, and my goal here was to defeat the giant clam mini-boss. I fought it using the Storm Surge weapon that took it down pretty easily, and inside the giant clam was a guy named Amidas, an NPC selling a ton of weapons, but I wasn't interested in any. After refusing to buy his overpriced items, I went back to my base to try and rest, only to experience a blood moon. A quick reminder that in Calamity there really is no time to rest. I summoned the next boss, the Eye of Cthulhu. I took it down and I was really happy about it. I headed down to the mushroom biome to fight the next boss, Crabulon. I was doing pretty well until I got stuck in place and died, but then I tried the boss again. I took the crap down and started making houses underground for NPCs that don't like living in the surface. The next boss was the Brain of Cthulhu, who is usually pretty easy. I started fighting and it was going pretty well, like most Brain of Cthulhu fights go. Pretty simple stuff, but I was not expecting him to do all of this.
Well, I'm convinced none of them are real.
Turns out the brain was made a lot harder after recent Calamity update. And just like that, the brain was defeated. The Sulfuric Sea, another biome added by Calamity, was really cool because you could head down, visit several layers, all with their own sea creatures and enemies to fight. It's super realistic that the lower you go, the higher the sea pressure, so I had to head out before I died. And after having a great time exploring the ocean sea, to summon the next boss, I had to kill the Perforator Cyst. I found the cyst and began the Perforator fight. But honestly, it didn't seem too hard. I just needed a few reforges, which was perfect because the goblin army arrived. I took them down, meaning the goblin tinkerer was somewhere in the world, waiting to be found. Before I found him, there was an acid rain event in the Sulfuric Sea. And yes, it's literally raining acid. I completed the event by taking down all the weird acidic enemies there, and as a reward, I didn't really get much. But on the bright side, I found a shrine containing a fungal symbiote that made mushroom weapons significantly stronger. Sadly, it's not going to be helpful since I don't use any mushroom weapons, but I managed to find the goblin tinkerer. I rescued him and made a ton of huge upgrades, and now it was time to fight the Perforator. Defeating the Perforators gave me Aerolite ore, which spawned in the sky. So I headed to the sky, mined all the ore, visited some floating islands, and farmed a ton of harpies for feathers. Using all of those materials, I made aerospec armor and wings as well, which was pretty cool considering they were actually good pre-Hardmode wings. And after chatting to a robot for a tutorial, I was able to make the magic storage system, which meant I no longer need any chests. And the upgrades don't stop there. Using aerospec bars, hellstone, and a wooden sword, I was able to make the broken biome blade. A tiny sword which effect varied depending on what biome it was attuned to. I went with the forest attunement, and the upgrades still don't stop there. In the underworld, I farmed for a sword called the Blade Crest Oath Sword, which was a 4% drop.
Yes!
And after getting it, I felt confident to defeat the next boss, Queen Bee. And with all of the upgrades I just made, it was a really easy fight. I think I got hit like once. I went to the next dungeon to fight Skeletron. Skeletron was pretty fun in Calamity, but it's still really easy. I explored the dungeon for a bit, which I believe was bigger than usual. The Clothier spawned after I took down Skeletron, so I was able to buy a scarf, one which let me dodge into any direction. And in my opinion, one of the best early game accessories in Calamity, making me ready to fight the slime god. The slime god fight was really interesting, especially when it split into 4 parts, but besides that, I took them down. As you can probably tell by now, I'm going to be playing as melee, so I made the Fractured Arc a strong sword that could slay down the wall of flesh. But before I defeat the last pre-hard mode boss, I had a few things to do. I built an ice house for NPCs that like the harsh winter. Wanting to cool off, I went to the underworld and discovered a lab containing advanced tech and machinery. Chests there also contained a blade called the Murusama.
Murusama, 3000 damage?
But I could only use it after I defeated the Devourer of Gods later, which should be pretty easy. I was almost done setting up for hard mode. I beat Deerclops and worked on the final layer of my house. I was making a tree of some sort, and now that I think about it, it kinda looks like the fire flower from Mario. But anyways, with that out of the way, it was time to fight the last pre-hard mode boss, the Wall of Flesh. The Wall of Flesh slain, we are now in hard mode. The Wall of Flesh dropped an airplane pet, and I went back to the surface to see how the world had changed. I found the Hollowed biome and Astral Infection biome, and it had a ton of hostile enemies. But while I was casually exploring my world, in standard hard mode fashion, Skeletron spawned and killed me. A constant reminder I couldn't take things easy. I made the Caustic Edge a strong weapon and made Palladium armor to fight the next boss, Queen Slime. The next boss to fight was Cryogen. I had a plan to fight the next boss. I was going to make an ice box since the sword I use has projectiles that bounce off walls, meaning I can do more damage. The setup was complete and it was time to fight Cryogen.
Let's go.
Who's this?
This guy inside of Cryogen had interesting drops.
Transforms Holder into a snowman.
In the underground ice biome, an enemy dropped a summon that shot cool projectiles. With my new summon in hand, I was feeling confident, so I headed on to defeat all 3 mech bosses. And first was the twins. The twins dropped a ton of cool developer sets, which I would wear from time to time. And next is the Destroyer. Now the final mech boss was Skeletron Prime. With the 3 bosses out of my way, I could repair the broken Bind Blade into a regular one, and it had more cool attunements. The next boss was located in the Sulfuric Sea, the Aquatic Scourge. The fight was going pretty well until...
No way I choked, bro.
Then I decided to give it a second try. The next boss was located in the underworld, the Brimstone Elemental. Its laser attacks are really unique and its attack patterns were fun to dodge. but after a few attempts I was able to take it down. The boss rush was over for now, so I had to step back and upgrade. I made cryo armor and collected heart. Wait, I don't think I need heart fruit, so I fought Plantera without making upgrades, which would be kind of risky. Plantera was really fun with its new attacks and I took it down, changing a ton of things in the world. A solar eclipse began, which was perfect because I need a ton of broken hero swords. Then I made Reaver scale armor and the Arc of the Ancients and the Blighter Cleaver, making me much stronger. I headed off to the desert to fight a giant sand shark, and it was time to fight the next big boss of the mod, the Calamity clone.
Rise again, my siblings?
You know Calamity bosses are crazy when they start talking to you through the chat box. He summoned his siblings and the fight got more intense. After that amazing boss, I went to the ocean to find the sirens singing a song, and when I killed it, it summoned the next boss, Anahita. After I got her down to a certain amount of HP, she retreated to the ocean floor and started shaking. With the boss of the beautiful blue ocean biome defeated, I had to go to the dark and infested astral biome to fight the next boss. I went to the altar and summoned it. I was doing no damage to the boss and lost multiple times. I was a bit confused on how little damage I was doing. I kept losing and I fought it until the next day, but to my surprise, it was a whole different boss.
What boss was I fighting the whole time?
Turns out I accidentally spawned in Astrum Deus instead of Astrum Ares. The former is a boss I'm supposed to fight later on. Despite the confusion, I still took it down. I went to explore the dungeon to summon the golem, who I expected to be an easy fight. I took his altar and summoned it in the overworld, and Calamity makes golem very different to say the least.
He's just tossing himself at me. Pause.
After a very interesting golem fight, in regular Terraria fashion, the next boss was due. I'm not sure why, but the vanilla bosses are giving me more trouble than the modded ones.
I'm so close. Alright, I got it. I got it. Let's go.
After that madness at the regular ocean, I went to the sulfuric one to get scorial bars, located in one of the deepest layers of the ocean. I used the bars to make scorial armor and challenge the Plaguebringer Goliath, who's one of the most creative bosses in the mod, and you'll see why in a few. He also did a good amount of damage. He literally launches nukes at me. It was a really close battle, but I beat it. With the Plaguebringer's drops, I was able to make the Exalted Oathblade, the upgraded version from the sword I got earlier. And I went off to fight the next boss, the Empress of Light.
Empress is insane in Calamity.
I thought I could use a break after the bosses, but then I got invaded by pirates. I used the opportunity to test out some of my swords like the Omni Blade, and once the pirates were defeated, I challenged the Ravager, who I remember being the upgraded version of Golem.
Hey, that was pretty easy.
Ravager was a pretty easy boss. Now it's time for the next enemy. You remember that boss from earlier I fought on accident? According to my list, it was time to fight it. That Astral Worm, Astrum Diaz. The worm split into two segments, which made the fight a lot harder. After losing, I made the arena bigger and tried to beat it again. The boss had a ton of defense, so it was going to take a while. I wasn't making any progress, so I changed tasks to summon the lunar events, because the pillars have a weapon that would help me defeat it. But first I have to fight the lunatic cultist. Once the Celestial event started, I took down the Vortex Pillar to make a weapon called the Storm Ruler, which is good at worm type enemies, so I gave it another try. With this new weapon, I had the furthest attempt I had yet, and I knew I could beat it on my next attempt. I mined Astral Ore and I was able to make the true Biome Blade, which was insane. And I went with these attunements. And with this sword, I was well prepared to fight the final boss, Moonlord.
I'm gonna need that ride.
I wasn't trying to farm for the Rod of Discord, so instead I bought a Discord potion, which let me teleport to my cursor. Only issue was that it cost a ton of gold. I died a lot of times to the Moonlord, and finally, after struggling on hard mode, I finally beat Moonlord.
Oh!
Yeah, Moonlord isn't actually the final boss. What I love about Calamity is that it extends the game by adding an insane amount of content even after the final boss is defeated. And I will say some of these bosses are some of my favorites I've ever fought in any game. But before that, I had to make some upgrades to prepare for them. First, I flew to the skies and visited asteroids containing luminite ore. Using that, I made solar armor and I made one of the coolest weapons this mod adds.
And here it is. Arc of the Elements.
Then farmed the Leviathan for an accessory called the Community. After farming, I was ready to fight the Profane Guardians. And here's how the fight went. The next boss was the Dragon Folly at the jungle. I beat the Dragon Folly, but I wanted to farm for a drop called the War Banner. But I made a huge mistake. I accidentally enraged the Guardians. You're supposed to fight the bosses at daytime, but if you fight them at night, they turn blue and get much stronger.
Go.
But to my surprise, I was able to beat them enraged. Still no War Banner drop sadly. But bad RNG aside, I decided to fight Providence, the ruler of the Profane Guardians. And let's just say it did not go well.
I can't see the projectiles. I can't see them.
You see, Providence projectiles are see-through, so it didn't help that I had shaders installed, making it nearly impossible for me to see them. So I sadly had to disable shaders for now. And after countless failures, I was finally having a good attempt. Well, until...
Oh, he enraged? You gotta be kidding me, bro.
But after memorizing its attack patterns and placing a few heart statues, I got a good attempt. Next up, I had to go to the dungeon to get items called necroplasm. While I was there, I made a silly mistake though.
Oh shoot.
Yeah, I accidentally spawned in a boss I wasn't supposed to fight. Now I had to fight the 3 Sentinels of the Devourer, all summoned by the Rune of Cost. The first one was at the dungeon called Ceaseless Void, who killed me several times. It was kinda tricky to get its pattern down since it controlled gravity and pulled me in place.
Let's go!
The next Sentinel is a Stormweaver. The boss fight itself is kinda funny because I'm chasing after its tail to do damage. I took down the Stormweaver, and next was the final Sentinel called Sigmus, who I summoned in the Underworld. And with all 3 Sentinels defeated, I could summon the Devourer of Gods. But before him, there were 2 bosses I had to take down. In order to make those bosses, I made a weapon called the Terraria, which was really strong and had the coolest projectile of all melee weapons I've used so far. Then I went to the dungeon to fight the next boss, Poltergeist, which was pretty easy. acid rain event has begun, and it's the last time I'm ever going to go to the Sulfuric Sea. It's not like I wanted to be here anyways, I mean it's literally raining acid, but I still had to make my last time count. I fought against the acid army, taking down a few mini bosses in the process, and I defeated it. But to my surprise, once it was over, an acid whirlpool came out of nowhere and spawned in the old dude.
Go.
With all of those bosses defeated, I made a weapon called the Death's Ascension, which could help me defeat the Devourer of Gods, who some consider to be one of Calamity's hardest bosses. I myself have never beat it in single player, and it's where I stopped playing Calamity years ago, so the battle against the Devourer was personal.
Not bad. Holy, what a fight, bro. What a fight.
After Dog was defeated, the Solar Eclipse, Pumpkin Moon, and Frost Moon all dropped essences I could use to craft new weapons. One of those being the Galaxia, which used the powers of the galaxy to switch into different modes. And I also made Godslayer armor, which had a really cool dash ability. The Murosama sword I got from earlier was now unlocked, and it's an iconic Calamity weapon. I farmed accessories and prepared a ton to fight the next boss, Yaron of the Jungle. Yaron unleashes a ton of fire tornadoes, and if it hits you once, it melts through your HP. I'm gonna be honest here, I wasn't sure I was going to beat this boss until I found a solution. One that would finally help me overcome this hurdle, and you would never guess what it was.
Let's go! You know the boss is hard when after you defeat it, they have their own custom defeat theme song.
Yaron, the biggest obstacle I've faced so far, was now defeated, and things were looking great. He dropped Drew's wings, which I could use to upgrade my boots to their final stage. Auric Tesla ores spawned throughout the world, which I could use to make extremely cool looking armor. And after combining the Biome Blade and the Arc Swords, I was able to make the Arc of the Cosmos, which was an insanely strong weapon and would cause a rip through space-time itself. With this overwhelming power, I felt like the Terraria world was finally at ease, but it's not over yet. The last two bosses of the game were still waiting to be conquered. You see, throughout the game there are labs belonging to a man named Draydon, who is responsible for some of the bosses in the game. There's encoder chips located all around the world, and once I was able to decrypt all of his messages, I gained the knowledge left behind by a genius. Using that info, I created the Codebreaker, a supercomputer that could be used to summon Draydon, the commander of the God-seeking laboratories. And after all of that hard work, I summoned him. But what I would find was far beyond the realm of mortal men. The three mechanical bosses icons popped up, but they were not the ones I fought earlier. They were something else entirely. All three mech bosses, which he described as his creations, seemed nearly impossible to beat. I kept losing over and over again. I came up with a strategy to beat the skeleton one first, since he was the easiest so far, and hoping my plan wouldn't fail me, I rematched him again.
Holy, bro. Wait, am I gonna fight Dragon too? You have also spilled blood, but it may be enough to usher a new age. I must acknowledge your triumph, but I will return now to my machinery.
With the Exomex drops, I was able to make the Exoblade, a weapon that would be good enough to defeat the final boss, Supreme Calamitous, an ancient witch and the final boss of the Calamity mod. I made the altar to summon them. As soon as she spawned in, she said rude things in the chat. Then after a certain amount of health loss, her brothers Catastrophe and Cataclysm spawned in to assist her.
What?
If the hole she summoned touched you, it almost insta-kills you. I underestimated the witch. I have to be careful from now on and use all of the skills I learned from my previous fights and give it my all. One last time.
It will all be in your hands now. They turn into a good guy?
Apparently she gave up, and after telling me terrible things a few minutes ago, she just quit for no reason. With all of the bosses defeated, I had one more thing to do. I moved all of my trophies to the house and said goodbye to the Terraria world, which finally had the peace I was fighting for this whole time. I had a great time with the Calamity mod. From its bosses, weapons, and music, I truly do believe this is the pinnacle of Terraria modding. If you want to experience this along with any other games, I created a Discord, so feel free to join. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below what you'd like to see next. And thank you for watching. Have a great day.